ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia. Good morning.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And of course, this is a very early morning for us to say hi to you. But yeah, for all Malaysians and Southeast Asian out there, I hope you guys have a wonderful morning starting up. So at our ASEAN Daily, as usual, we update you with more news from Southeast Asia. But to start off, I want to update you on things that is happening in the backyard of Malaysia. So talking about a huge candlelight vigil that happened yesterday in support of Nurul Izzah, one of the member of parliament from the opposition coalition. She was remanded by the police for allegedly, I'm not really sure how to say it, but apparently she was being blamed for being one of the participant or organizer for the hashtag Kita Lawan rally that Duran ASEAN also attended and covered it as well.
But even then, the police actually haven't quite mentioned which part of her whole speech was seditious as they claim it to be. And at the same time, it doesn't make sense for a member of parliament, while delivering a speech, for them to actually say that her contents are seditious, because under the Article 63(4), in the Constitution, it says that a parliamentary speech actually cannot be subject to a Sedition Act, which is one of the ways for our representatives to go into the parliament and to voice their concern. And how can they do that if they're actually scared of being charged under the Sedition Act?
That's the thing, right? Actually, prior to her was also another two activists, Mandip Singh as well as Adam Adli was held for Sedition Act as well. On the Kita Lawan rally. But it seems like almost anything or everything can be held for Seditious Act.
That's right. Even if you're a member of parliament, you're still not safe from the Sedition Act. And even though you're technically protected by the Constitution, it still doesn't guarantee anything, it seems, these days.
But you know, in the parliament, usually people would say the most outrageous stuff, and never even once that people are being held for seditious.
Because that's how it's supposed to be in the first place. When we have a member of parliament going in, they want to voice what's the concern of the people, and sometimes it may not always be what they want to hear. And like you mentioned, a lot of outrageous things are being said. They even call names at each other, and also they have arguments. They have very heated debates. That's the way it's supposed to be in the parliament. It's not supposed to be a very smooth sailing dialogue or discussion between everybody.
So it is expected for people to have what's that word? But last time, they always call names to each other. But in the parliament is okay. People are allowed to use those vulgar words. But of course, the more civil you are, the better. And I don't think Nurul Izzah did anything vulgar or intend to insult anyone. I think she was there exercising her duty as a member of parliament, extending the concerns of the people at that time. So it's quite tricky for the government to actually do that towards a member of the opposition party. I mean, even if they have intention to put her under seditious act, they should have choose a better reason for it rather than that particular reason, which is not really,
and that particular speech that she made just at the parliamentary session, which is very normal for anyone to give a speech and to voice the concern, whatever it is, regardless of how scandalous the topic is. It's their job to actually present the concern of the people.
But I think the gist of this news is, it's not so much about her, but about the fact that the government is using Seditious Act for almost anything, everything towards anyone. And I think that's that's very dangerous in the sense that you're creating this mentality that we need to always be guarded of what we think, what we say, even in social media.
And we're also already making international headlines with what happened with Nurul Izzah, especially even before this. They used the Sedition Act multiple times, but it was still, it didn't really reach the worldwide arena. But after what happened yesterday, we are actually pretty much on every newspaper, and not for the right reasons as well, because like you mentioned, this is not just about Nurul Izzah, but it's the whole perspective on the opposition party in Malaysia and how well the government is handling it. And apparently from this, they're not handling very well.
And another thing that I really feel that we need to emphasize is about freedom of expression. Yes, freedom has its own limits, but and of course, at the end of the day, you want to be, or you want to live in a society where people are civil, people treat each other with respect, agree to disagree. I don't think Sedition Act would create that kind of society. It would only create fear, especially in the way it is being interpreted and being used by certain quarters. I feel that people should allow freedom of expression, of course with responsibility and with limits, but at the same time, I think people should also not be feared of what they want to express, especially in social media, in the parliament, on the streets. As long as they are not committing violence, they are not breaking any laws, I don't think they should be charged under any act at all, especially Seditious Act.
And I'm quite interested to actually hear what Gowri would have to say about this, because usually when something like this happens, he always has he's sort of like come in at the right place at the right time and say something to calm everyone down.
Oh,
but
you are such a Gowri fanboy.
Fangirl.
Oh my god, you're such a Gowri fangirl. I hope, I mean, I'm sure Gowri would say something, but I doubt Najib would say anything.
Well, we'll have to wait for that one and see, because he can't run away from this as well. Well, people are actually waiting for his response on the matter, so we'll see if anything comes up later today.
So from Nurul Izzah news, we move on to somewhere in a news that is affecting our neighbor. I'm talking about the tsunami hit Japan town. Apparently, the community center gifted by Singapore opens in a tsunami hit town in Japan. And Singapore Foreign Minister K. Shanmugam on Monday opened a community center at Rikuzen Takata in Japan's Iwate Prefecture. It's a gift from the people of Singapore after the tsunami in March 11.
And
2011, yeah.
Also, if we look at it from a per capita basis, the destruction of Rikuzen Takata is actually regarded as one of the worst disaster ever in Japan. And in fact, some news sources were also saying that it's almost wiped out from the map because the tsunami that hit the place and the earthquake as well was that bad, and a lot of people died, and most of the homes, buildings were all demolished, that there was just pretty much nothing left anymore, and they had to build the whole place from scratch, which is where Singapore actually stepped in and decided to help with all the rebuilding efforts. But of course, the highlight here was the community center that they built for 11.1 million.
Oh, that's a huge sum of money. In fact, what we are seeing right now, that Singapore is really trying to rebuild the community there. I think on the bigger sense, it's also about trying to extend or strengthen their friendship with Japan. Japan has always been a strong ally in Southeast Asia, especially with Singapore. And Singapore see by expanding their altruistic helping hand towards Japan, in this case with the community center, it would somehow show that we are friends. We are friends we are a friend in need as well. And I think it's great. And just a bit of a background on the city of Rikuzen Takata. The disaster has left 1,800 dead or missing in the city. So I'm sure the community there has been devastated for quite some time, and this is a welcoming gift from them.
And also, if you were to look at it, when we talk about Japan, they're actually, most of the time, they're pretty well off. They're pretty efficient at handling their own disaster.
Tell me about it.
So for Singapore to step in as well, it's probably kind of like an ego boost for them. Like as well off as Japan is, we can actually still step in and help them and help to rebuild their city, and also build a community center for them, which they will be calling the Singapore Hall. So that's why I said it could be a little ego boost for them as well in this case.
Well, what about a Malaysian hall? Prime Minister
Not
Najib?
gonna happen.
Is it going to happen?
There's too many scandals in our own country in Malaysia here for us to actually go and build another hall in Japan.
So from Singapore we move on to Cambodia. So apparently Turkish Foreign Minister pays, guess what, a first time visit to Cambodia. I guess, Arabic countries or countries in the Middle East don't really pay too much attention in countries within the Indochina area.
Yeah, but recently we've been actually receiving a lot of attention with Japan coming in, and now we have the Turkish foreign minister coming in to visit Cambodia in the Indochina region, like you mentioned, because we know that these countries are poor, and all these countries probably have the perception that they have nothing much to offer us, so there's no reason for us to go in and step in and build a relationship or foster a partnership with them. But it seems that perception is changing, which is a very good thing for us in the region.
A lot of people might not know, but Cambodia actually have not 1% but 5% of Muslims. So even if it's a Buddhist majority nation, 5% of Muslim is actually quite a huge number. In that sense, the Muslim there has a strong connection with a lot of Muslim in Southeast Asia as well as in the Middle East.
And which is why they have also applied to Turkey to be an observer in the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. And that's also another reason why the Turkish foreign minister is visiting, to also talk about the diplomatic relations as well as the Organization Islamic Cooperation, which is called the OIC, and see how Cambodia can be a part of it in Turkey.
People always make fun of OIC.
Okay. I see it now.
Because there's a lot of criticism towards OIC, because talking about criticism, they always say it as, oh, I see.
Right.
That means they only observe, but no actions.
Don't really do anything about it.
No action are usually taken, which is, it's not really a pun. But anyway, the corporation also will be seeing Turkish Airlines starting its flights routes to Cambodia in the near future. Is currently seeking air rights in neighboring countries.
And Turkey will also be signing visa exemption agreement for all the diplomats and special passport holders from Cambodia to make things easier for these Cambodians to go to Turkey.
I can't believe only now. I would assume that after establishing relationships since 1970s, things that would have gone even further in terms of strengthening the friendship,
Yeah, probably they just made friends and then forgot about each other for a bit, and then they remembered, oh wait, I have a friend in Indochina. Let me go and revive this whole relationship.
Like your old friend back in probably primary school. That you forgotten, and then you're like, hey, maybe I should be friends with her or him
again. Yeah, let's see what else we can do together. And that's why Turkey has actually shown some interest now in Cambodia.
So I think the main connection between both countries is the fact that they have quite a number of Muslim population, and I think when it comes to Islamic trade, it's definitely expanding globally, and especially in the Southeast Asian region, you see a lot of Muslims are becoming middle class, are starting to be more aware of Muslims from other countries. So this is definitely a positive move in terms of strengthening the primary school friendship between Turkey and Cambodia. So we'll take one short break. When we return, we will talk more about India as well as Myanmar.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
You're back with us again on ASEAN Daily. So, to begin with, our news is a tiring news actually about rape. So, India, people of India is protesting over rape of, guess how old the woman is? 74-year-old nun.
And this also happened quite recently after what happened with the previous gang rape case in India that happened, and that also caused a nationwide stir, and there were people from all walks of life protesting, from older women, college students, school students, and you would think that after something massive like that, people would learn their lesson and probably you will not hear about cases like this, but it happened again, and it's quite a huge shock, not just to the Indians but also to us and to people all over the world.
And apparently the elderly nun is from the Indian state of West Bengal, and the fact that she's a nun, it makes it, and she's 74 years old, it doesn't seem relevant for anyone to actually rape her.
Yes, and even if we were to look at the previous rape case that happened when the rapist was actually proudly saying that he raped her because he wanted to teach her a lesson with what happened with the girl and her friend, and he was saying that, oh, if she was a decent girl in the first place, she would not be walking around at night with a guy at that going for a movie. Someone who's not your brother or your husband, like that is wrong. So that's why they wanted to teach her a lesson. But this nun was in her convent, and she's 74 years old. She was wearing her robe, not exposing anything. She was not with a guy, but it still happened. So what's their excuse now?
What I'm seeing right now, the trend is gang raping rather than one individual committing the rape. It seems like it's an organized crime against women, and I'm just dumbfounded. Where does that mindset come from? The idea of gang raping, is it because of watching too much porn, or is it because men are given too much leeway, or is it because of the patriarchal system where men are being seen as or men are allowed to be seen as the one with the basic instinct, the one that cannot control their desire, and women need to cover themselves to be able to protect themselves against men?
I think if as an Indian myself, I would have to say that
you see yourself in
what? Yeah,
not Malaysian.
I do. Well, I mean, I do have access to that whole Indian mentality at home, although I am a Malaysian, and
I probably have like 2% Indian, so
Oh,
I
yeah?
can't comment on it.
Okay. Well, yeah, it goes back to the whole patriarchal thing, like you were saying. Men are actually given a lot of power if you're in an Indian family, or I would imagine it would be much worse in India, that men would have a lot of power where they feel like, if I think you're wrong, I'm going to teach you a lesson, and maybe I will just tell you, maybe I will slap you, maybe I will rape you. It's totally up to me.
But do you think that is really an Indian problem, or is it because, or is it really a socio-economic problem? Because to say that it is an Indian problem is a bit overjudging towards Indian men. I'm not saying Indian men are all holy and nice, but I'm just saying that gang raping especially happens in situation where they are there's war, or women have lesser rights than men, and it probably happened in a lot of different areas, different parts of the world, especially in places where society are socio-economically disadvantaged, meaning they are living in poverty, and it probably happens in situation where women are not given equal recognition, equal opportunity in life. So I'm just saying that maybe the media is highlighting a lot on gang raping cases in India, but at the same time, is it really only happening too frequently in India, or probably happening a lot in the rest of the world? It's not being highlighted as frequently as we see in India.
Well, if you were talking about rape itself, I would agree that it is of course a socioeconomic problem, and also it happens due to a lot of reasons, and it's a worldwide thing. It doesn't only happen in India, but if we, in this case especially, if we were to look at what really drove this, I would think that the fact that the the male counterparts are actually given a lot of power also sort of drives the whole thing even further. It gives them more motivation to do it because they don't actually even feel like it's wrong. Even with the BBC documentary that was banned in India, none of them felt like what they did was wrong because they felt like they were all guys and they were obliged to actually protect the culture and to sort of.
But is it even part of the Indian culture or the Hindu culture in this case?
What is?
In terms of a man should be seen as the leader, and if the woman wears something immodestly or go out at night without any reason, they need to be punished, and in this case through gang raping.
That is usually the case. That is the kind of mentality that the boys are taught even at a very young age, especially if they have sisters. They are told that, okay, if your sister dresses like this, it's your job to tell her that she cannot do that because that's not our culture, and you should not none of us should get influenced by the Western culture of dressing and whatnot. And of course it's a very conventional or traditional way of thinking, and
I thought it's just a Malay Muslim problem.
Well, it happens with the Indian community as well, very much. And when you keep telling the little boy these things, he grow up believing it, and he just feels like I'm the boss of every woman. And if I see anyone not following the culture according to what they're supposed to be doing, I have every right to go up to her and do something about it. And that's not even wrong for them. They feel like that was my job, that was my responsibility.
So in a way that patriarchal is still very much a deep-rooted problem in the Indian society. But I think not to be judgmental of certain culture, but I think in a lot of culture, especially in culture where socioeconomically they are not doing well, usually society would still remain patriarchal. It's part of the survival mode in a way. So moving on from raping cases is regarding on land reform. So police had clashes with protesters in India capital over land reform. When we talk about land acquisition bill or anything to do with land reform, of course instantly we would think about countries within Indochina. But in India it's also a big deal.
Yes, because 24.6% of their total workforce, which is over 481 million people, are actually farmers. And also, of course, I haven't been to India, but if you watch a lot of movies which reflects the life in the villages, you would see that a majority of them, that's how they make a living. And it goes from like one generation to another generation. They own a land and they cultivate it, and that's just their way of life, and it just goes on to the oncoming generations. And it seems that with this new law, private sectors can actually come in and start buying these lands from the government, and that's why there was a huge rally. There was a huge outcry from the citizens in India, because this land, they feel like it belongs to them and it's been theirs for generations, and they don't want it being taken away from them.
And what's worse is the government has opened the door to acquire farmers' land, multi-crop lands for private sectors, which definitely is unacceptable. And actually the reason why this is happening, because the previous government, which was very much left-leaning, has changed under Modi's more right-wing way of developing lands, and the bill overhaul legislation by having billions of dollars worth of infrastructure being built on farmers' lands.
So he's looking at it more on like an infrastructure point of view. Like, okay, if we actually do something more with this land, we could probably build shopping malls or train stations and
Sounds
whatnot.
Sounds like Najib here.
It does in a way, but then again he has to also take into consideration about the people. What about the people who have owned the land for generations and they still want to be doing what they're doing? And he can't just step in and say, I'm taking this land away, giving this to some multinational company to do something about it.
I guess governments all over the world needs to find a balance between development and also ensuring that people who are working on farmlands, their rights are being protected. And from India, of course, we are moving on to Myanmar. When we think about Myanmar, we think about country that is struck with poverty and country that is trying to seek ways to develop itself. But apparently, poor education is one of the main reasons that need to be of a concern in Myanmar. And especially with ASEAN integration, I think a lot of the countries in Southeast Asia need to focus on its education system, improving it.
Especially because they will also be using English as the medium for all the 10 countries, and it will be very difficult if certain countries cannot actually keep up with the change that's taking place. And you were saying earlier as well about what we think of when it comes to Myanmar, and sadly, it's not very good things that comes to your mind when you think about the country. And they also have a little priority problem like Malaysia, I think, because although pro-education is a worry, apart from the student rally, we don't really hear the government doing much about it. They are more concerned about not making the Rohingyas a part of the country and other issues with rebel groups that they probably oversee the most important thing, which is education, which is the root, the basis, the whole foundation where you build your country with the younger generations coming up. But that's not being given any importance at all.
A lot of people might not know, but in terms of literacy rate, Myanmar has just only 19%. There's a lot to catch up in a way that an increase in the budget, education budget, is also one of the 11-point demands from the Myanmar students. The recent national education protest by the Myanmar students, which we saw a wave of protests as well as clashes with the police. They actually have very strong points in this, that they are opposing the kind of national education law that is too centralized, and they are of course currently pressuring the government to designate 20% of the country's overall budget for education purposes. Now we are seeing that a lot of the students are under lockup because of the protests, but we hope that the focus of the government should not be against the student, but try to understand the 11 demands and try to improve the education system of Myanmar.
And it seems that Myanmar's education and health budget is actually the lowest in ASEAN, and they have not been increasing, although there have been demands. And of course we have little groups coming up asking for a change to happen, and also in this case with the students protesting against the national education law. And another problem here is also when it comes to attracting foreign investments, when foreign investors want to come in, not just the education level, but if their education level itself is not good enough, you would assume that their English proficiency is not that good either, and that is kind of a turn-off for foreign investors who would like to come in and invest in Myanmar.
In fact, last year there's a study called Myanmar Unlocking the Potential, summarizing Myanmar's education sectors, which is insufficient budget despite a sharp increase in public spending since 2011 fiscal year, inequitable access to education by a majority of young people in Myanmar, as well as poor quality in relevance and teaching standards. The funny thing is, Malaysia has one of the highest budget for education, and we still suffer the exact same thing that Myanmar is suffering when it comes to the education system. I think it's beyond just lack of funding
and how much you actually spend. It's also about getting the right person to work out a blueprint that really works for the whole country, for all the students in the country.
That's true. Anyway, talking about Myanmar student, there's a news right now we received that Myanmar student protesters, in fact, it's at odds with older activists. When I say older activists, I'm talking about activists like Aung San Suu Kyi, and apparently Aung San Suu Kyi does not really agree with the student protesters on the national education law that they are protesting against. So what we are seeing right now that the student protesters are definitely having some odds with especially the democratic icon Aung San Suu Kyi over their tactic in addressing the issue of education law. If you are looking at the trend how Aung San Suu Kyi is addressing towards President Thein Sein, she's now less I would say, fiery as last time. Last time she has always been at odds against President Tan Sui, the former President Tan Sui. She has always been very firm on her stance, but now she seems to be focusing more on cooperating together with President Thein Sein, try to understand the government better, try to smoothen out the edges, and cooperate together in essence with the government, and try not to speak out too loudly on human rights violation. She hasn't been mentioning the word Rohingya at all ever since she was released from the house arrest, and not to mention she's not happy with the way the students are protesting against the government. She feels that maybe the students should just go through the right channel, in this case going through Napido, and try to settle it probably closed door or probably through the Parliament channel.
It's quite shocking actually, because I would assume that Aung San Suu Kyi, being the iconic leader that she is, she would actually be more supportive of what the students are doing, but it's probably also because of the generation gap, if I may, that she's also, like you mentioned, she
she's
prefers
getting older.
yeah, so she prefers the more conventional way of sitting down and talking. So when there's any rally or protest happening, she also feels like this is not really the right way to do it.
You know what my suggestion? I think both would be great. Because you need someone to be on the ground rallying for support and trying to create awareness on the issue, as well as trying to pressure the government in a way that the government needs to be pressured. But at the same time, I think dialogue is also great, because without engagement, you wouldn't know if the government is willing to extend their ears to listen to all views from the ground.
So hopefully the students keep pushing for the reform as well, and also Myanmar to pay more attention to the education level in the country and make that a priority for them.
Just a quick shout out on what is happening right now in Jakarta. Apparently now we are having this ASEAN Literary Festival 2015 with this year's topic called Questions of Conscience.
Right, and also this literary festival is focused on how the digital age has changed the whole writing landscape in Southeast Asia. And of course, we have a lot of social media these days as well. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, and it's funny how this little social media can actually change the way we humans communicate, with all the short forms, the abbreviations, and also the way we spell certain words.
I think social media has definitely changed the way Southeast Asian writers think and write. In the past, because the lack of access to bulks of information, so it is, people tend to think long and hard, and when the kind of information that the kind of writings, their writing style is more winding. But nowadays, nobody wants to read like articles that is longer than a thesis. They want to read something short, up to the point, something that they can instantly digest and get the message.
And something probably like fun facts instead of long-winded articles, even analysis. They prefer something that's short and to the point, which is and also when it comes to the content of the things they read or even the things they write. Another issue here is what kind of issue do they focus on? Do they talk about humanity, justice in the country, or do they talk more about just pop culture and whatever that's in these days?
I think a combination of both. I think they are seeing that human rights issue can be a form of pop culture as well, in a way that how entertainment and music and other forms of information has become pop culture, in a way that it can go viral, it can really touch the thinking and feeling of the younger generation. But I think one thing that I'm quite interested in the ASEAN Literary Festival is the kind of Southeast Asian writers, poets, performers that they are able to put together in one event in Jakarta. In fact, in Malaysia, we have representatives from Buku Jalanan to actually share their views and thoughts at the event. So all the best.
And looking forward to the ASEAN Literary Festival.
Yeah, and in fact, later today we are going to interview one representative from the ASEAN Literary Festival to share with us on the gist and interesting points of the event. Before we end the show, just a bit of shout out about the 9 ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting. What I like about ASEAN, they always have this long ministerial meeting.
Getaway, retreat.
I love it.
Now we're just making fun of them.
Just being sarcastic. But, the good thing is ASEAN pledges collective response to extremist threats. Well, finally, they come together as one to respond.
And they realize that individual fighting is not going to work, so they're actually going to come together and do some information sharing, increasing surveillance, and also promoting awareness. And this will be done collectively instead of by individual countries.
And all this was being discussed in the comfort of Langkawi.
Of course.
From Kota Kinabalu to Langkawi. I wonder what is the next island getaway
Probably
trip.
Perhentian or something.
I was actually rooting for Sipadan.
Oh yeah. Or Penang, who knows?
Who wants to go to Penang?
Everyone.
Anyway, just want to give a bit of highlight about what was being said by Dr. Ng from the Defense Minister from Singapore. He said that we must deny ISIS as a stronghold in Iraq and Syria or any other country from which to radicalize our people here. And he is spot on, because a lot of Southeast Asians are definitely young and going to Syria and Iraq by themselves. They are really being influenced by the cool social media production of ISIS.
And also that will definitely help to curb the problem, because it's very easy for ISIS. They have already reached into our region and seeping their information through all the different media. So for ASEAN to come together now and to address the problem as a group is what we've been waiting for to hear in this region.
So Gowri, that's all from us today. How they can reach out to us?
They can always, first of all, listen to us on our Facebook page, of course, our website, which is durianasean.com. And if they want to leave comments, give us suggestions, they can do so on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and they can also follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the daily podcasts.